VRG GRL is one of those brands that always captivates me with their marketing. Every single time I see one of their promotional imagery or videos, I'm so enticed to click. But I've had a bad experience in the past, and first impressions really do last, though I know that they don't tell the entire story. So I thought today we could revisit VRG GRL and I could do a bit of a deep dive, a review on the pieces that I thought were potentially worth buying and see how they hold up and stand up in real life. Now, I love doing reviews like this because I find that it's helpful, one, to see how clothing actually moves on the body, but also to get another perspective and just get a sense of the way that I assess clothing and what it is that I'm looking for things that will be everlasting in a wardrobe. As I always do with these reviews, you'll also find a companion piece over on my website. I'll link it down below, along with everything I shared, and that'll feature all of the item measurements, as I know that that sort of information can be really helpful. And I want to preface this by saying that I did actually order quite a few items because I wanted to get a good sense of the scope of the brand, but I was very considered in what I was adding to my cart. Everything had to be something that I could see working from a long-term perspective, but also I put a real focus on natural fibers. They have quite a few synthetic items, and this definitely leans into the fast fashion nature of the brand. I mean, you've only got to look at the pricing to kind of get a sense of that. So I'm hoping to get that longevity by seeking out items that are made from natural fibers. So the very first item I added to cart is this cream pleated maxi skirt, and I was very intrigued because it is so rare to come across a pleated skirt that is made from 100% cotton, and there is a reason for this. So cotton doesn't actually hold a pleat. Whenever you see a garment like this, it means that the pleats have been pressed in, and every time you launder it, you're going to have to repress the skirt or whatever said type of item it is. Whereas polyester, it does hold a pleat, though over time with repeated wear and tear and continued stress on the garment, those pleats will eventually fall out. So right off the bat, that had me excited. Plus, you'll know I'm kind of either all or nothing right now with skirts. Either it's a mini or it's a maxi length. So this kind of ticked that box too. This has belt loops here at the waist, and there's also a split at the front. Though I will say the split front is very awkward. Like, there's no real way to kind of show it off nicely, and I suspect that it was more for the movement of the garment and also to allow airflow, because the cotton on this is incredibly robust and really thick. It has a side zip closure, and the thing I appreciate is that there are belt loops too, so you can add a belt of your choice, so you can go without. Now, on sizing, I originally ordered a size 8 because I thought that would be my usual size. I was looking at the model. Even though I clocked what it said the waist measurement was on this, I thought potentially the website might have been wrong. Turns out actually the 8 was too big because I wanted to sit high on the waist. So I ended up ordering a size 6, which does fit perfectly. And that one measures 66 centimeters across the waist. So if you want to wear it high-waisted, I would recommend going down one size. The skirt is really nice, so I do have a couple of minor criticisms. One being, I really, really wish it had pockets. I think that that would make it feel even more premium than it does. I suspect they chose to omit those just to keep the cost or the price of the skirt down. The other thing is that I love the cotton, but I find that because it is so weighty, it doesn't really gel quite so well with the pleated design. I think pleats like this tend to feel more harmonious when they are paired with a more fluid, lightweight fabrication rather than something that has so much structure to it. But overall, I feel like this is a really strong start and have me very excited to try on the rest of my order. Barn jackets have definitely been having a bit of a moment for the last year or so, and I really liked the look of VRG GRL's take on this trend. Now, it's 100% cotton, so tick, tick, tick. I was very happy to see that. It has a velvety corduroy collar, and then there's also the corduroy trim on the cuffs as well. And I love that contrast between the kind of more cotton canvas twill and the corduroy. It's quite subtle, but definitely one of those things that helps to elevate and lift a piece. You can also see there's corduroy here on the pockets as well. This has a zip closure and then snaps, which are silver. Now, the cream that VRG GRL uses, it kind of leans just ever so slightly butter yellow, like the softest version of butter yellow that you could find. So if you're someone who suits more of that cool toned pinky beige cream, then you may find that this is at odds with your complexion. The other thing that I appreciated is that they actually lined this with 100% cotton. Pricing wise, this is 179 Australian, so definitely one of the more expensive pieces on their website. And for sizing, I went with an AU8, and I would say it's true to size for a relaxed fit, though if you are petite, you may like to size down. I actually think that this is such good value for money. I mean, sure, you could probably find something similar from another brand. I think they've really nailed the cut, and I truly appreciate the fact that this is a monochromatic piece and they've matched the corduroy to the cotton of the jacket really nicely. So yeah, this was another win, kind of starting off very strong. I seem to have front-loaded this review with all of the cream pieces, but next we have the Elka mini skirt, which comes in quite a few colors, and they tend to do seasonal variations on this. This to me is something that I associate with the brand, as it's sort of one of their, I guess you would call one of their foundational pieces. So it's very simple too. Elasticated waistband, cotton mini. What I do like is that it has quite a decent hem, so if you wanted to actually lengthen it a little bit, you easily could, either yourself or at a tailor. This is one of the most affordable items that I ordered at 65 Australian dollars, which I think is a bit of a steal though. In this cream color, and you can see it matches so nicely with that jacket from before, it is not 100% opaque. I read the reviews and all of them said it is not sheer at all, and I don't know if they're just kind of nitpicking which reviews are on the website, but you definitely have to be mindful of what underwear you're wearing with this, and also what you're tucking into it, because you will be able to see fabric of darker colors, or actually anything, because when I was trying it on, I tried it on with this striped top, sneak peek, and you can see the stripes. So that to me is definitely something that you have to be mindful of when you're styling something. If you want your clothing to be effortless, then this is going to require a little bit more work, because you really have to consider what top you're wearing or how you're going to negotiate that sheerness, if you're even caring about it at all. Sizing wise, I went with my usual size 8, and I would say it fits very true to size, so on that point, really nice. The elastic is stretchy, not too firm, but also not too loose, so that is nice because it feels very comfortable on the waist, and I do like that it's a smaller elasticated waistband, because to me that feels slightly more elevated. Again, no pockets on this, and definitely to me it feels like a trend of trying to reduce that price point, because that adds an additional layer to the manufacturing and sewing process. But also, if this did have pockets, you would very clearly be able to see that it is not 100% opaque. So I think this one is kind of like 75% for me, because it's a really good price. It's 100% cotton. I think the actual silhouette is pretty flattering, actually, very easy to style, but I think to improve this they could have gone with a cotton that was slightly more opaque, but it does actually have a really nice feel on the hand, like quite smooth. This comes in quite a few colors too. I think the green gingham they have on their website is really sweet, and trust me, I was very tempted to try that one out, but I know myself, I know I wouldn't wear it. Now, if you saw my Suzanne review, which I'll link in the cards, then you'll know that I have a thing for Houndstooth, and I ordered the Suzanne jacket and I ended up sending it back. It was a little cropped vest because it was just a little bit too short. So, oh my gosh, when I saw this Houndstooth jacket on the VRG GRL website, I immediately added it to my cart before I even bothered to look at the price. So this is the most expensive thing I ordered. It was 279 Australian dollars, and I actually think that's a very fair price for what this is. It's a 100% wool jacket, and it feels like it's becoming less and less common to find 100% wool jackets or outerwear at a price point that is below $300. So I really feel like you've got to give it points for that, though I immediately deducted them because the lining is polyester, which kind of annoys me ever so slightly. I mean, I suppose if you were really so inclined, you could maybe get the lining replaced entirely, but that seems like a lot of work. This is billed as an oversized blazer, and it definitely is that. And when I was looking at the model imagery, I decided to go down a size because I wanted it to be relaxed, but intentionally so. So I got this in a size 6, and that was the best decision I made. So I would say size down unless you want to have that super kind of exaggerated oversized fit. The wool that they've used does have quite a lot of texture to it, so if you're someone who is incredibly sensitive, then that's something to be mindful of, though because it does have that lining, there isn't a lot of skin being exposed to that wool, but I did just want to mention it. I also just want to point out that I feel like they've finished it really nicely on the interior too. Now this actually comes with a little belt that you can wear it with or without, and it doesn't have any belt loops on the waist, so something that if you have it floating around in your wardrobe, you might lose it. So I always recommend kind of just attaching it to the hanger if you're not going to style it that way. And I actually think it looks really chic worn both without the belt and with the belt. I like it gives you options. The other thing I noticed is when styling it with the belt, it doesn't really feel like the jacket is moving around, and that's kind of something I find when I am belting just my regular blazers, and I would say that's probably because the style was engineered to be belted. It has some padding in the shoulders, so you get a bit of a strong shoulder effect. So if you're someone with broad shoulders, you may find the style accentuates that, though this is kind of a dream for those who are more narrow shouldered like myself. Probably the only other thing that I really want to mention is the length of the belt. It is ridiculously long, like dragging on the floor long, especially if you're not kind of looping it and doing some kind of styling sorcery in order to make sure that it isn't just flopping about everywhere. I kind of wish that they had made it a little bit shorter, though that to me is a reasonably easy fix. Overall, I think a really nice jacket, especially at that price point. I said I wasn't going to order any more stripes, but this is in the name of research. So the next item I wanted to try was their Willow Tee. This is again another one of those iconic pieces that they do in a lot of different colors, and it retails for 69 Australian dollars. Though what is interesting to me is that not every single one of them is created equal, because the fabric composition on each one varies. So if you get their kind of block colors, they tend to be cotton, but if you get something that is sort of in this airy fabrication, then you're going to end up with a cotton blend. And I do wish that they had gone for a cotton linen blend instead of a cotton poly blend, though I suspect that's probably to help strengthen the fabrication, though it doesn't really give it the nicest touch on the hand. I do think overall that like this is quite a cute little t-shirt. It's $69, so again, you could find something that is 100% cotton at so many other places. I don't really think that the style is enough to make me say go out and get that one. Places like Uniqlo do really good options. Even Daisy on the Iconic, they have a 100% cotton tee, which is less expensive than this, and it's also striped. So just kind of want to flag that. It does have the white ribbed trim here, and then kind of that design which is very slouchy, so drop shoulder, really long sleeves too, which kind of just hit at the elbow, and then the length is considerably long as well. And it's the kind of thing I would style loose, more with a little cotton short or with the cotton minis that they have on their website, or even just a slim fit maxi skirt, which is probably the most common way you see it in their e-commerce imagery. Look, this is a t-shirt. T-shirts are a dime a dozen, and for you, it might be fit that is the most important factor, or maybe it's fabrication, or maybe it's the color. There are so many different things that you could be looking for. I think this is fine, but I do feel like, particularly in the stripe, they could have just improved it by opting for a 100% natural fabrication. You know, I mean, to me, there's just no reason to blend this with polyester. So yeah, again, it's kind of very mixed for me. And I guess that's kind of my sentiment with a lot of these items, is that yes, there are a lot of things to be excited about, but there's always just one little niggle, and it's, are you willing to kind of overlook that little niggle for everything else that you love about an item? And that kind of goes to my point about whether you want to settle for something or if the exact version of what you want actually exists out there. Okay, so we've got a few more cotton pieces to run through before I wrap up. So we have the Elka top next, which is basically an apron style top, square neckline with kind of medium width straps, and then it has this little bow detail at the back, which is very, very sweet. And they've styled it on their website kind of with the little mini skirt, that you could also style it with the shorts as well. And this kind of caught my eye because things like this are great during an Australian summer. It's 100% cotton, but also a really lovely detail with this is that it is lined as well. They don't list what the lining is made from, so I'm gonna go and assume that it's cotton, as that's the only fabrication listed on the tag. Now this one retails for 75 Australian dollars, which again, I think that's pretty fair for something like this. It's got the darts here at the seam to kind of give you a little bit more shape so that it isn't quite so boxy. And I really think that this bow at the back, really quite sweet. Comes in a couple of other colors as well. I think this is really sweet. I like the fact that the length actually hits below the hip, so below your widest point. It's almost like a little tunic in a way. The only thing you need to think about is what undergarments you're wearing with it, because you're either wearing a bra which is revealed or you have to go without. But it would kind of make a really good option to throw on over the top of a swimsuit in the summertime, I feel like, especially if paired with the matching little mini or cotton shorts. So to go with the top, I also ordered these little cotton poplin shorts, which have the drawstring waist here, really nice little thin elasticated waistband, which you know I like, and bonus, this actually has pockets, which I was so delighted to see when I tried them on and also when I was reading the description, but it's just kind of a nice little bonus. These come in a lot of colors, though again, not all of them are cotton, so if that's kind of your key criteria for an item like this, then you need to check on the colors you're interested in. These do come in at 75 Australian, so same price point as the top. And I have to say, if the difference between having pockets and not having pockets is $10, I would rather pay the extra extra $10 in order to have the pockets, especially on the skirt, because the silhouette of this is pretty similar, but just in a shorts format. This has the same kind of cotton poplin as the top, and actually just to kind of expand on the cotton poplin that they've used here, it's fine, but it's not kind of the smoothest, sort of silkiest, loveliest cotton poplin I've ever felt. And it's definitely a good reminder that there is a scale when it comes to the quality of any fabrication that you're buying, whether it's a synthetic like a polyester or whether it is a natural fiber like cotton, linen, cashmere, the whole lot. So this doesn't feel like top tier cotton to me. It feels kind of more middle of the road, maybe even slightly lower than that, which is again kind of how brands like this are able to keep their prices really low. So it's not to say that this will wear worse or it won't last as long in your wardrobe as something that is kind of that top tier quality, but it is just going to impact, I suppose, the tactile nature of wearing a garment. And so if you're someone who's very sensitive to how fabrics feel, then, you know, maybe you want to keep searching. But overall, I think that these are actually fantastic, and I can see these being a really strong kind of solid option in my wardrobe. I will say I've got a pair very similar to this in white from Assembly Label. I believe the price is about the same, but the Assembly Label ones feel much more premium. The cotton they've used is way nicer, kind of silkier, smoother on the hand. So I will link those down below just as an alternative option, particularly for those of you in Australia. So then the final item I have to share is this 100% cotton mini skirt. So this one retails for 79 Australian dollars, and I think you can really see that there's a big difference in terms of what you're getting with the money that you're paying. So for an additional $14, this feels much more kind of highly developed, and there's a lot more detail in the construction. So there are multiple panels. You have this kind of frayed effect here to the fabric. It's also lined as well. And then you have a zipper at the back. So you're getting a lot more value for your money with a skirt like this. This has a little bit more of a bell shape, I would say. Oh, and it has belt loops too, which I think is a nice touch because then you can add a little belt at the front. But yeah, it's got more of a bell shape to it. I would say more so than I would have anticipated just based on the website imagery. I think this is incredibly chic though. The cotton they've used has this kind of textured, organic, raw feeling to it, which I think really adds to the nature of this item. I would say this is something I thought I was going to be even more excited about in person, and it's nice, but it hasn't really kind of blown me away, despite the fact that I think from a value proposition, this is probably one of the better value items that you can get from VRG GRL. That, and I think that barn jacket that I shared at the start. In case I didn't mention, I got it in my usual size 8 and would say it does fit true to size. This to me does feel like a pretty solid choice, and I think if you really are kind of tossing up between this skirt and the cream and this one here, this is going to deliver both better value but also more ease of wear because it is completely opaque. But yeah, that's a last item that I wanted to share. So I feel like overall I've had a lot of success, and again this kind of comes down to knowing myself, what I like, but also being so stringent about the exact details I'm looking out for in an item, and that definitely does help kind of heighten the experience and make sure that it's going to be a success. I did want to touch on briefly on the item I bought that was a total fail. It was a little linen mini dress, and they have it in their sale section. I do not recommend buying this because the linen felt terrible. It was also incredibly short, like in this way that it cut me off. Despite being a mini, it cut me off in a way that was very unflattering, and the fabric was not 100% opaque. So again, you had to think about what knickers you were wearing. It's a style that would really only suit shorter girls or people who have a shorter torso and really long legs. If I can find a photo, I'll pop it on screen. VRG GRL to me is one of those brands that I think there's some really incredible looking pieces that don't feel simple or that basic. I mean, I definitely went with the more minimal neutral options, but they have so many fun prints, and I think that can be really exciting, especially if you're someone who is kind of evolving their style and you're looking to experiment without spending too heavily all at once. I feel like this order has definitely raised my impressions of the brand. I am overall really happy with everything that I added to my cart. Of course, there are a few little niggles, and I feel like you're always going to find that, especially if you are a true nitpicker like I am and hypercritical of the things that you're kind of bringing into your wardrobe. I'm always going to find something that bothers me. I feel like I kind of seek it out in some way, but I'm hoping by giving you my assessment that gives you a sense of what to expect with each of these pieces. The price point is really accessible, which I think is incredibly attractive, particularly for a brand that doesn't just do basics. Yes, they have kind of your neutral pieces, but they do a lot of beautiful in-house prints, which I think are so engaging and captivating. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. I would love to know if actually you've placed any VRG Girl orders, what your experience has been, what pieces you bought, if you loved or did not like. Share in the comments. For me, the one I actually really wanted to buy was the sequin set, the top and the skirt. But I stopped myself because I knew it wasn't ever something I would wear, and I would be ordering it just for the sake of trying it on. And one final thing to actually mention at this price point is, yes, you are going to see some kind of loose threads. You're going to see some instances where the sewing machine has been run over the same stitch a couple of times, maybe to give it a little bit more reinforcement. But loose threads are really easy to snip off, and unless you're kind of really inspecting the garment, which most of us aren't, we're just wearing our clothes, you're probably not even going to notice. Anyway, I've read it on a long time, so a huge thank you if you have made it to the end of this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, that it was insightful, that maybe you got some styling ideas from the cutaways, but also just a bit more information about a brand, particularly if you've been thinking about placing an order. I hope that you have the most beautiful week ahead. If you're new here and you love brand reviews, how to remix your wardrobe, or just general style advice, I'd love for you to subscribe. And I'm curious to know what brands you want me to review next. Leave those in the comments, and I will see you next time with a brand new one. See you soon. Bye.